Singapore without Malaysia, Indonesia, and others. In 1963, Singapore merged with Malaysia, hopeful for a brighter future free from British rule. Economic gurus, including a distinguished Indian expert, predicted that unity with Malaysia was the only path to survival. But Lee Kuan Yew and his leaders had doubts. When Singapore split from Malaysia in 1965, the tiny island was left to fend for itself, stripped of its role as the British Empire's Southeast Asian hub. How would Singapore adapt and thrive without its coveted Malaysia hinterland? Against all odds, this plucky nation would defy expectations, reinventing itself as a beacon of progress and innovation. Witness the remarkable story of Singapore's resilience and transformation. Singapore's turbulent environment in the 1960s and early 1970s. Imagine a young Singapore, freshly minted as an independent nation, yet deprived of natural resources needed to attract foreign investors. The country faced a daunting challenge: the Borneo Confrontation, an undeclared war from 1963 to 1966, sparked by Indonesia's opposition to the creation of Malaysia, which included Singapore. With the UK, Australia, and New Zealand providing military aid to Malaysia, Indonesia received indirect support from the USSR, Russia, and China, entwining the conflict with the Cold War. This tumultuous period saw trade with Indonesia plummet, while Hong Kong emerged as a hub for foreign investments, thanks to Chinese industrialists and bankers who fled communist China. Post-separation in 1965, Malaysia sought to isolate Singapore, limiting trade and ties, forcing businesses like Guinness to relocate to Kuala Lumpur instead of Singapore. With a crippling 14% unemployment rate by the end of 1966, businesses struggled to stay afloat amidst a sea of government red tape. The Vietnam War, 1955 to 1975, a Cold War proxy conflict, loomed large, casting a long shadow over the region. Enter Dr. Albert Winsemius, a Dutch economist who arrived in 1960 and became a trusted confidant to Singapore's leadership. His advice to Lee Kuan Yew was simple, yet bold. Forge a common market with Malaysia. Revive barter trade with Indonesia. And charm the US, UK, Australia, and New Zealand into favorable trade deals. Meanwhile, Finance Minister Kim San embarked on an expectant journey to West and East Africa. But his trade delegation returned empty-handed. Singapore was plunged into uncertainty when the British military suddenly withdrew, despite Lee Kuan Yew's desperate attempts to extend their stay. The immense economic impact stared at them, with the loss of 20% of Singapore's economy, 30,000 direct jobs, and 40,000 indirect jobs in a population of just 2 million. To make matters worse, the world was rocked by the oil crisis sparked by the Israeli-Arab Six-Day War in 1967, which blocked the Suez Canal, further crippling economies around the world. The perfect storm of challenges threatened to engulf the small nation, testing its resilience and forcing its leaders to think outside the box. Visionary leaders, bold moves. Singapore's pioneering leaders, led by Lee Kuan Yew, dared to defy conventional wisdom. Rejecting the begging bowl approach, they charted a course for industrialization, driven by innovators like Kim San, Goh Keng Swee, Han Swee Sen, Ong Kah Kok, Philip Yeo, Hao Yun Chong, Sim Ki Boon, Joe Pillay, and Chan Chin Bok. Their bold strategy: create a first-world oasis in a third-world region, enticing foreign investments with top-notch infrastructure, well-planned industrial estates, equity participation, fiscal incentives, and export promotion. Tourism was another key play, capitalizing on its labor-intensive and low capital requirements. Runmi Shaw of Shaw Brothers pioneered the Singapore Merlion logo, sparking a promising tourist boom. While it wasn't a silver bullet for unemployment, it marked the beginning of Singapore's audacious transformation. In a bold move, the Singaporean government spearheaded the development of key industries such as steel mills, shipping lines, and airlines, later transforming these monopolies into independent entities, free from ministerial control. To fuel innovation, They sent bright young officers to study at top universities worldwide, including Britain, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, France, Japan, and the United States. To safeguard local industries, tariffs were implemented to protect assembled cars, refrigerators, air conditioners, radios, television sets, and tape recorders, with these measures eventually phased out after 1975. Meanwhile, Hon Sui-sen, a visionary civil servant, orchestrated the repurposing of 15,000 acres of British assets, representing 11% of Singapore's total area. This repurposing under the base's Economic Conversion Department ensured a smooth transition for redundant workers and paved the way for future growth. As Sir Arthur de la Mare became the newly appointed British High Commissioner, Lee Kuan Yew astutely advised him to win the hearts of Singaporeans by allowing the repurposing of Britain's treasures and not discard them as per its practice. This clever move would not only foster pro-British sentiments, but also empower locals with new skills. The once militarized naval dockyards were transformed into thriving civilian hubs, birthing Sembcorp Industries from the ashes of Swan and Hunter. Blakang Mati, a former military stronghold, was reborn as Sentosa, a tranquil oasis for tourists. Historic landmarks like Fort Canning, which hosted the British Army military headquarters before the Japanese capture of Singapore, and Seletar airfields were revamped for leisure and commercial use, while the Pasir Panjang complex was reincarnated as a vibrant National University of Singapore, NUS campus. And, in a remarkable feat of engineering, the RAF was expanded through land reclamation to become the world-class Changi International Airport. In 1960, visionary Dr. Winsemius sparked the creation of the Economic Development Board, EDB, which bravely embarked on joint ventures with local businesses. One such daring venture, a paper products recycling business, struggled to take off due to the local partners' lack of manufacturing expertise. Despite initial setbacks, the EDB's pioneering spirit paved the way for trailblazing organizations like the Development Bank of Singapore and Jurong Town Corporation. The latter's ambitious project, the massive 9,000-acre Jurong Industrial Complex, sent ripples of excitement but also skepticism, with issuing a mere 12 certificates in 1961. But against all odds, it roared to life, skyrocketing to 390 certificates by 1970, offering investors a coveted tax-free haven to thrive in Singapore. Singapore's savvy strategic moves attracting global investors. In the early days, Singapore rolled out the red carpet for Taiwanese and Hong Kong investors, enticing them with attractive business terms to set up low-tech factories for toys, textiles, and garments. Although these ventures weren't large-scale, they were labor-intensive, which helped alleviate unemployment. Inspired by Israel's leapfrog strategy, Lee Kuan Yew also looked beyond his neighbors to forge ties with the developed world. By 1968, Singapore had successfully lured companies like Norway's Mustad, which established a factory employing hundreds to manufacture fishhooks. The nation's bold plan was to become a hub for American, European, and Japanese manufacturers, exporting products to the developed world and leapfrogging its way to prosperity. In a surprising turn of events, Japan lagged behind in investing in Singapore until the 1985 Plaza Accord triggered a surge in the Japanese yen's value, prompting companies to shift gears and expand globally. Some flocked to Taiwan, Korea, Hong Kong, and Singapore, seeking new opportunities. Meanwhile, British investment returned to Singapore in the late 1970s, with Beecham Pharmaceutical blazing a trail by establishing a cutting-edge operation to cater to the Southeast Asian market. However, not all success stories were meant to last. German camera giant Rollei, which relocated its entire production to Singapore while maintaining R&D in Germany, tragically collapsed after 11 years due to market dynamics. Amidst this landscape, the Singaporean government joined forces with foreign companies to set up training institutes and centers of excellence, supercharging local skills and output quality. Singapore uncovers the hidden American hinterland. As the British military departed, the United States seized the opportunity to inject life into Singapore's economy. In 1968, they offered to utilize the Sembawang ship repair facilities, generating a whopping $4 to $5 million in business. Meanwhile, Lee Kuan Yew, Singapore's visionary leader, embarked on a sabbatical at Harvard University, where he absorbed valuable insights from Professor Ray Vernon on technology, industry, and profit drivers. During his subsequent visit to New York, Lee's infectious optimism, despite the Vietnam War and other crises in the region, impressed American CEOs, paving the way for investments to flow into Singapore. With the backing of the US government, American multinationals brought cutting-edge technology, creating high-quality jobs and transforming Singapore's landscape. The Jurong Industrial Complex received a significant boost from American corporations. Texas Instruments paved the way in 1968, followed by Hewlett-Packard. In 1970, General Electric, GE, established 6 diverse facilities specializing in electrical and electronic components. GE eventually became the largest employer in Singapore and subsequently expanded into Malaysia and Thailand. By the late 1970s, joblessness was no longer a concern for Singapore. By the 1990s, Singapore had evolved into the world's third-largest oil refining and trading hub, a major petrochemical manufacturer, and the largest fuel oil banker market by volume. It also emerged as the leading financial center in Southeast Asia, surpassing Hong Kong in many aspects. Singapore had found a new hinterland without Malaysia, leapfrogging into the United States, and they continued to strive for greater challenges and a higher purpose. Thank you for watching. Please write your comments here, like and share this video. Stay tuned for more thrilling stories with lessons, and kindly subscribe for more intriguing videos. Lessons Untold. Relax, review, reflect.